Hi, I'm Matt Harris and this is my vlog. In this entry I'm going to talk about ISTE. So this past weekend I was in Houston, Texas for an ISTE board meeting. We have these board meetings about 4 times a year, and I wanted to use this opportunity as kind of a reflection on some of the work that we do to address some interesting things that kind of came out of the meeting, although there's only so much I can talk about, and to kind of give you an overview of where ISTE is going from a governance perspective. So if you've read my bio, you've probably seen that I am the chair-elect for ISTE, which means that in January 2016, I will take over as chair of the board for ISTE. And I'm in a unique position because I will be the first person to hold this position while living and working overseas. So I live in Singapore presently, and I will be taking over as chair while not being in the United States. And nobody has done this. And this is going to be a unique challenge for ISTE, because of the time zone differences, because of the communication challenges, because of what events I can and cannot attend. But it's something that we've really embraced, which I'm super, super excited about, because ISTE really is kind of taking on this I in ISTE, the international piece of ISTE, and saying, all right, let's do it. It's going to be some interesting work. There's a lot to be done with the board, and the board has a lot of good work it does for ISTE, and because ISTE is so influential and so important in the EdTech community, in the EdTech field, that means that we get to help not necessarily shape where the field is going, but we get to help influence and connect members with a very influential and powerful organization. And so the work that we get to do for the board is just great. So anyway, in Houston, we talked about a number of things. You know, we're kind of ramping up for the conference in Philadelphia this June. We talked about some governance-related items and a number of things that I can't discuss because of the confidentiality of being on the board. But one thing we did talk about that I kind of want to address is a gap that we've identified as board members, and that is that the membership of ISTE doesn't really understand what we do. And this provides a unique opportunity because through this vlog or through conversations with people, we can kind of talk about what ISTE does overall as an organization and how being a member of the board helps guide that. So for those of you that aren't familiar with governance, and what I mean by governance is boards of directors or boards of governors or trustees, most not-for-profit, and I do say not-for-profit, not non-profit, there's an important distinction there. Most non-for-profit organizations will have a governance structure, which means that the president or the CEO, whoever is in charge of the operations of the organization, reports to a governing body of non-paid volunteers that are elected by the membership or by the constituency of the organization to guide the organization strategically, financially, and to have fiduciary responsibility. So our job as the board is to ensure that ISTE is meeting its mission. And there's a very well-crafted mission statement on the ISTE website that I recommend that everybody take a look at. And within that we have 4 N's. And these N's are kind of the purpose for ISTE. What are we driving at? What are we moving towards? Our job as a board is to ensure that the CEO, and by extension through the CEO, the rest of the organization is working towards those ends, and they're meeting them. Along with that, we kind of certify the strategy of the organization. We ensure the financial health of the organization to make sure that everything is above board, that there's transparency, and that the monies that are provided to the organization through the membership or through other organizations are used in a way that are fiscally responsible and, again, meeting those ends. And then we also have what's called a fiduciary responsibility to ensure that the organization stays viable, that it limits us from liability, and that it's moving forward in the direction it should. And while this all sounds very complicated, because it's ISTE, that work that we do not only ensures the health of the organization, but it helps grow the field overall. Educational technology is a pretty vast ocean, and ISTE is a very large ship in that ocean. By working with ISTE, by helping it move forward, we're kind of ensuring that the standards are well taken care of, that the ISTE conference is being well taken care of, and that practitioners in the field have the opportunity to engage with these resources, to engage with the networking available through ISTE, the PLNs, the affiliates, that is all being done in a way that really grows and meets the needs of contemporary ed tech, which, as I'm sure all of you are well aware, changes by the day. And so we really are a point of influence, of advocacy, and we're experts in the field that help ISTE meet its mission. So it does come down to the technicalities of governance, but it's also very exciting work. You know, we sit around at a table of 12, 13 people, and we discuss items that are going to affect ISTE for years and years to come, and we help the organization move forward, and then we ensure that they have the resources they need to do the good work that they do. From a pure governance perspective, just so everybody's aware of this, ISTE follows the Carver governance model, which relies on policy-based governance. And it's a very interesting model because it's a non-traditional model that allows for a set of freedoms and communications between the board and our singular employee, the CEO. So we actually only monitor one person, and that's the CEO. He, in turn, monitors all the other employees in the organization. So we don't employ anybody else, we employ him, and he does all the HR pieces. Through a set of policies that are agreed upon by the board and certified by the membership through bylaws and through other processes, we are able to help steer the organization in a particular direction. But that's all we do. We don't run the organization, which is really nice because in my leadership philosophy, and I think this is true for a lot of people, we're not supposed to be managers from a governance perspective. We want to hire competent people, strong people, and give them the freedom within a certain set of bounds to go and do great things, to move forward, to be creative, and to push the envelope on what is possible and what is healthy for the organization. Because that's what you want, right? You want people that are going to take their passion, take on a challenge, and really move forward. With the governance model that we run, that's what we do. We talk about the policies that say, we would like the organization to move toward this particular end, and here's how we're going to measure it. But that does not dictate to them that, okay, you need to ensure that there are 15,000 attendees and that there's this amount of money for the conference, and you know the colors need to be blue. No, that's not our role, and nor should it be. That's the role of the organization. So it's this nice symbiotic connection between the board and the CEO, where we give guidance, we give metrics, we give evaluation, but then he and his team have the freedom then to grow ISTE. And I think you'll have seen in the last few years that ISTE has grown immensely. And I know we've been very happy as a membership to kind of see where things are moving forward with ISTE. So as a board, we're right in the middle of that. We get to see what's happening. We get to put those guidances and limitations in place, and we get to help interpret them and identify how things are going forward. And being that it is ISTE, that there's a huge influence there. ISTE really does a lot of really strong work around the world. We know about the ISTE standards. We know about the conference. Those are very common. But if you really dig deeper, there's a number of other resources. There's a number of other networks and connections through PLNs, which used to be called SIGs. And so it's just, for me, being somebody who's been in the field for a while and has been connected to ISTE for a long time, to get to serve the membership as chair of the board is just, it's an incredible opportunity. But the gap that we identified, excuse me, the gap that we identified while we were at our ISTE board meeting in Houston this last weekend was that people don't understand what the board does, or that we even have a board. And that's tough because we as a board are supposed to be representative of the membership. So those who are ISTE members have us as people to work with and to be representatives to ensure that the needs and the requirements of the membership are getting met through the organization. So we're going to take a few approaches to try and help this. If you're coming to the conference this June, we have a number of events. We have a pre-conference event that we're planning right now. Again, I can't go into specifics because they're still in the planning phases. We have a a full session event during the conference, so take a look at that. And we have a couple of kind of board hours, kind of like teacher hours, that are available so that folks can come and talk to us while we're there. And what I want to say here for the 7 people that are going to watch this video is please take that opportunity. If you're walking around and you see a board member there, talk to them, ask them what they do, offer suggestions for the membership. Now, I will say that as we are not an operational board, as we are not one that gets into the details of the conference operations, I can't tell you why the vending machine only has Coca-Cola and not Pepsi. We can't help with the number of chairs in a flipped learning session. Now, we can pass on those pieces to the operational folks, but we're really more looking at what are your needs as an educator in the classroom or in a particular district that could be met by ISTE. So does ISTE need to have a greater focus on Common Core standards? Is there, like in my field, do we need to have a greater reach to international schools or ministries of education? Those sorts of things we can help with. Or you'd like to see an increased focus on flipped learning, or you want to learn more about X. Those are things that we can talk to you about, and maybe we can pass on to the organization, or we can discuss as a group. So I encourage you to engage in those discussions. Further, take a look at the board webpage. Look at some of the work that we do on an ongoing basis. Learn a little bit more about the Carver governance model, which is something that, as I said, we use quite deeply in our work. It is our model for governance, for interacting with the CEO, with our one employee. And as you look at it, just to kind of go on a tangent here, when I was first looking at it, it's kind of a departure from governance models I've seen in the past. But I've really embraced it. I really have liked it because to be honest with you, it's kind of the model that we strive for in education. If you take kind of the IB approach to inquiry-based learning, you don't want to guide students to a particular conclusion. No, you want to give them tools and boundaries and allow them to explore and move forward. And what you find is that you get greater learning, you get greater engagement, and you get greater productivity. And that's what we have here. We're not in the weeds of what ISTE is doing operationally. We're helping them move forward. We're helping provide guidance to them through our expertise. Just this past weekend, we had a very interesting discussion about an upcoming program from ISTE, and the engagement between these experts was amazing. You learn so much hearing from somebody that works internationally, like I do, or somebody that's in charge of a large school district, or is an educational consultant, or works for a major corporate partner. To hear their views on stuff that you do every day and how that impacts really helps ISTE as an organization, because they get these diverse viewpoints. But then there's also this great piece for me as a board member, because I also get to take a viewpoint that I normally wouldn't have. So those rich discussions are kind of, I find them very beneficial because I see what it does for ISTE, but then it also does quite a bit for me personally. So that's a very nice takeaway. Yeah, so as I go forward with this vlog, I'm hoping to do kind of a reflection on our board meetings and conferences as I go through the next couple of years, finishing up my term as the vice chair, or the chair-elect, and moving into the chair position. Because I think that there's some interesting information to glean from this. I'm hoping that it will kind of spark some questions from people as they learn more about the board. I'd like it to be a chronicle of my time, because I think this is a very critical point in my life, and I'm really interested in having a record of that. And as I've said in other vlogs or in some of my writings, this provides me an opportunity to kind of articulate things that are bouncing around in my head and think about. Like this notion of the Carver governance model being connected to good teaching and learning. I really, really like that idea. And it's something that I will use when I talk to people ahead of time, or talk to people about potentially joining the board, and as we prep for onboarding and kind of transitioning people onto the board, maybe we can use that as a frame to help them kind of understand the scope and range of what we do as board members. And just to kind of finish this off with a closing thought, because what I was hoping to do is talk about what we do as a board. And I've hit a few pieces there, but I want you to know that if you are an ISTE member or somebody thinking about joining the board or coming to the conference, or you're just interested in this, you know, as an ISTE board member, our primary role is to be servant leaders. That's kind of the terminology that we use. And we are servant leaders for the membership. Our job is to represent the membership's interests and by extension the field. And the field is broad. The field of EdTech is broad. For me, it is very much about international education, multiple curricula, ministries of education, different contexts and cultures, and how EdTech affects them and the tools and resources and networks needed to grow that. But there's more. There's the U.S. Department of Education. There are EdTech companies that are established or trying to get off the ground. There are tech companies that are trying to jump into the field. There are large and small school districts. There are independent schools. Our job is to represent the interests of all of them within the frame of what can and should ISTE do. And what nicely is we have defined what ISTE can and should do, and now we're into a point of interpreting and guiding and giving information about what's really going out in the world. So our job is to be this connector. We're supposed to be a connector of the membership to ISTE. So ISTE is an individual organization, as I said, a ship on the ocean. We are there to talk about the ocean. We're there to talk about the different waves and what's going on. We are not there to run the organization, but we are there to influence and ensure that it has health beyond the life of the people that are working there and beyond our lives as board members. We do that best when people talk to us and ask us questions, when we're clear with the organization about what our policies and procedures are, and when we can engage in real conversation about the ever-changing nature of educational technology. If you are interested in the board, please feel free to contact me or any of the board members that are on the page, on the board webpage. And I will say for me, from a personal standpoint, this is one of the most engaging and strong professional developments that I have ever partaken in.